Introduction to photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a physicochemical process. In photosynthesis, what happens is the light energy is converted into the chemical energy in the form of ATP and reducing equivalents such as NADPH. And this chemical energy which is generated during the photosynthesis is used for carbon dioxide fixation. So by doing a photosynthesis, you are doing carbon dioxide fixation. So this is how the photosynthesis looks like. Through sun we get light energy into the light reaction, and the light reaction produces ATP plus NADPH. Now in Calvin cycle, this chemical energy and carbon dioxide enters, and Calvin cycle by utilizing these two things produces triose phosphate, which eventually gives you sugar. So this is the overall photosynthesis reaction, you can say. A photosynthesis is a two-step process. So the first process is light dependent one. Okay, the first process is also known as light reactions. This first process, that is light reactions, requires the direct energy from the light, and this first process uses this light energy and makes the carrier molecules, and these carrier molecules are used in the second process. So photosynthesis is divided into two processes, first processes and second process. So this first process is producing your carrier molecules by utilizing the light energy, and these carrier molecules which are produced in the first process are being utilized in the second process of the photosynthesis. So the Calvin cycle is the light independent process which occurs when the products from the light reaction are used for the formation of the carbohydrates. Okay, light reaction produces some products, and those products are being used in the formation of the carbohydrates, and that is your Calvin cycle. So your photosynthesis process is divided into light reaction and Calvin cycle. So your light reaction produces some products. That products are being used in the Calvin cycle with CO2, and you produce carbohydrates. That is the overall photosynthesis process. Now, on the basis of the generation of oxygen during the photosynthesis, the photosynthetic organisms are classified as oxygenic and anoxygenic. Okay, so there are two types of photosynthetic organisms. First is oxygenic photosynthetic organism, and the other type is anoxygenic photosynthetic organism. Now this oxygenic photosynthetic organisms are included in eukaryotes as well as prokaryotes, but these anoxygenic photosynthetic organisms are only included in prokaryotes. That simply implies that in eukaryotes there are no anoxygenic photosynthetic organisms. Okay, eukaryotes do not have anoxygenic photosynthetic organisms. So let's look at the examples of these oxygenic photosynthetic organisms. Okay, in eukaryotes the examples are plants and photosynthetic protists, and in prokaryotes you have cyanobacteria. So these plants, photosynthetic protists and cyanobacteria, all of them are oxygenic photosynthetic organisms. Now let's look at the example of anoxygenic photosynthetic organisms. These anoxygenic photosynthetic organisms only include prokaryotes, and the example are green and purple photosynthetic bacteria. This green and purple photosynthetic bacteria are anoxygenic photosynthetic organisms. In the oxygenic photosynthetic organisms, the photosynthetic oxygen generation is done with the help of light dependent oxidation of the water into the molecular oxygen. It simply means that the water is being oxidized into the molecular oxygen during the process of photosynthesis. So water is the source of your molecular oxygen in the oxygenic photosynthetic organisms. So that is how the classification of the photosynthetic organism is done. If the organism is producing oxygen, then it is oxygenic photosynthetic organism, and if that organism is not producing oxygen but is doing photosynthesis, then that organism is anoxygenic. So this is how you represent the photosynthesis process in oxygenic photosynthetic organisms. The carbon dioxide is converted into carbohydrate in the form of with the help of light and chlorophyll, and this NH2O is being oxidized into this molecular oxygen.